The other day I was watching TV and I thought to myself, how are producers getting their music onto TV or film, and how much do they even get paid for it? But that's probably a dumb question anyways, who cares? And where the hell would I even start? Send a beat pack to Quentin Tarantino? It's not like I just know somebody who has had their music featured on Complex, Netflix, VH1, MTV, BET, Lifetime, Bravo. Even if I did know somebody, what would I do? Just ask them for an interview?
We got a collab video? For sure, bro. You've been killing it lately.
We got that mother.
Alright, what's good everybody? Welcome back to another Heat video. This one today is something special for sure. Now, first off, I really want to thank you guys for over 6,000 subscribers on this channel. If you're not already, make sure to subscribe right now to help us reach our next milestone of 10,000 subs. Thanks. And to address the obvious today, yeah, this video is almost double the length of the usual content that we do create on this channel. But just the amount of gems that you're gonna get in this one video about sync placements, you are going to make sure that you do not skip one single part of this video. Now, as mentioned in the intro, we will be joined today with Nate, aka XCaliberZero. He is a music producer who has landed many major placements, as we mentioned in the intro, and he currently makes his living from the sync licensing industry. Now, by the end of this video, you're gonna know how and where to submit your tracks for placements, how the structure of beats differs when you're setting them for these placements, the best practices when submitting your tracks, and much more. Now, if this interview does get you curious about this topic and you want to learn more, I left all of Nate's links in the description below. So now, without any further ado, let's get into the interview. All right, what's good everybody? So today I'm joined with Nate, aka XCaliberZero, and he is here to tell you guys how to get your music on TV and on film. But before we get into those gems, I think we should start off a little bit with your background. Let's hear it.
Yeah, so I started doing like type beats online, doing beats online at a very early stage. I was selling my beats on SoundClick back in 2011. But from that point, I kind of needed to get my life in order, really. And my mom was kind of like pressuring me to get, you know, just pick a target and start going for it. So I chose to go to Full Sail, and then I graduated in 2014, and it was a bumpy ride, but it was definitely a great experience, and I'm glad I did it.
So what were you hoping to get out of going to Full Sail? What was like your dream? Like, okay, I'm going to go to Full Sail and then I'm going to do this.
When I went to Full Sail, I kind of knew already that they had a really good career development program. So I knew that whatever direction that I took at the end, I could really hone in on it and pick the right thing for myself. But when I was going in, I just wanted to get a better understanding of the recording art side and how to actually record for artists. And my goal was to learn the engineering side better. And when I got out of it, I was able to look at a few different options. I know that I personally wanted to go to California or New York. After making that decision, I got a couple interns, and one was for a music library that does, you know, TV placements, films, and advertisements. And I pretty much took that and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go here. It's unpaid internship, but it's in California, and I think this will be a good place for me to start and get an opportunity to compose for these different TV shows. Always had like a little, my eye on it. I've always seen, you know, SoundClick sites that had the MTV placements, and I always wondered, how do I do that?
So you mentioned there going to a music library and being an unpaid intern. So in interviews, you've mentioned that you were an unpaid intern for 7 months.
After I got in and I started seeing a little bit of how the back end works, like doing just like the legwork on Excel and stuff like that, I started to realize like this is a really big opportunity. So I just stayed patient. And then when I finally got the opportunity, they told me they were going to try me out, paid for 2 weeks. And it was versus another dude. Basically, it was me and another guy trying both of us out. And he ultimately ended up going in a different direction. And I stayed and I got the opportunity and started working for them for like 6 years. So,
that's awesome, man. So within those 6 years there, what are some of, I guess, the most memorable placements that you can think of right off the top of your head?
Well, definitely my first one, which was Skin Wars. And that was on GSN. I got like Catfish was really cool for me. Vanderpump Rules. The NBA was definitely dope for me. Miami Heat, Instagram, Real Housewife, which is like one of the top 2 reality TV shows. Jimmy Kimmel was another dope one for me. So those are some cool ones that I got.
All right, man. So those are awesome to hear. But what's even more interesting is after achieving all of that within your 6 years there, you've recently decided to actually part ways and basically go independent. What made you want to do that?
Like I said earlier, I come from the background of doing beats online. I always had a passion for that. I always knew that this is the route I wanted to take. It's like I never really wanted to work with like industry producers. I didn't really see myself in studios after going, to Full Sail and stuff. I saw that lifestyle. Basically, when I started getting to a point where my royalties were getting really comfortable, I realized like I can go back to doing what I like doing. I liked making content. There's content of me from like 2013. So I knew that if I was able to, still live off my royalties and go to this direction, that I could really help out a lot of people, I feel like.
Awesome. That's good. I mean, that's awesome to hear, man. Like becoming your own boss and really just having the availability to put your time wherever you want it. And I think in the past, probably like 5 minutes, you've mentioned a lot of keywords we're going to get into. So I know a lot of producers are probably like, what the hell is a music library?
Yeah,
what's this?
sure.
What's that? So we're going to start breaking some of that stuff down. So you mentioned all these placements. You've mentioned going independent now. Even with being at the job, even with now being independent, what are some downfalls of the industry?
One of the biggest downfalls is that you have to be patient. This is a patient game. This is not for the producer who's making one beat a week. This is going to take time. This is something that compounds over time. And the more music that you put in, the more output you're going to get, but it's going to take you a while to actually start seeing some of that money. Like from the first time that I got my placement, it took me a year to get my first placement. And from there, it took me a year to see my first royalty check. So that was 2 years from the start, from the starting point, basically.
Yeah, that was kind of one of the things I think I noticed is we'll get into the payment periods and how you get paid by royalties and the whole process behind that. I think everybody right now can Google sync licensing and get like the technical Google definition. But how would you define sync licensing yourself?
I would define it as the music that's made for visual media. And that's, and before we would define it as TV, film, and ad. But I think right now the era that we're in goes way beyond that. We're getting content creators like on TikTok, we're getting content creators on YouTube who have pretty much the beats that are used for TV now, they're making libraries for these YouTube channels. Sync, there's so many different opportunities, but I would define it as the music for visual media. Anything that you're seeing with images or, picture.
I think the best way to start here for most people is actually starting from the back, so that way they understand the process of like how this music is found, because that's going to help when you learn how to submit it. Is there one specific person who's looking for the music, or is it a team of people?
Every TV show has a person who's looking for music. So they're either the music supervisor that's hired on, or they're a music coordinator. Basically, those people, you can think of them as A&Rs for these TV shows. So they're looking for these different songs that are going to fit, so they can send the editor, the person who's actually editing the show, music, and they can put it in and plug it in for specific scenes. So whatever type of scene it is.
So you worked for a music library. So putting 2 and 2 together here, the music coordinator or supervisor is going to a music library then to find tracks, correct?
Right. So they want to work with people who are already, licensed, that have deals that are, just cover them. They don't want to get sued for any music. And you're submitting to a library. The library puts together all these different playlists and catalogs. They send it out to the music supervisor for the TV show, and then they basically tell the editor, hey, this music goes here, this music goes here, and that's how the process pretty much goes.
So like, I guess the best way to kind of like reiterate that under one roof is, it's kind of like how artists can't just go to like Metro Boomin or Take HEATE for a beat, and even if they can, it's going to be a lot of money. These music supervisors are going to music libraries, which is pretty much artists going to beat store marketplaces to find music that they can use for their tracks at an affordable and more efficient cost.
Right, exactly.
Beautiful. Everything's so much better when we can relate it to selling beats. So I hope that's really helpful you guys. So now we're going to get into the technical ways to submit, but we're going to get into the best practices for submitting later. So you can't just watch this part then leave, or else you're going to make some big no-nos, I would imagine. So what is the first way you would recommend producers to submit their music?
So I would definitely look out for music libraries. There's a few different ways that you can find them. One of the big gems that I like to give out is Google Music Library Directories. And the reason why is because people put together these lists, and it's going to give you a good start as far as the different libraries that are out there. And then I would do my research and look on LinkedIn and IMDb. And you can do a quick search by searching production library or music library. And that would be the first way. Another way If you're an artist who makes your own beats, this is kind of the route that I recommend, as well as doing the music supervisor, looking up music supervisors. That's going to be a little bit harder, but if you're able to create a relationship with them and be reliable and consistent, and you have all your music cleared, you're not using any samples, that's a good way to get in with these music TV shows as well, and get paid a little bit more because you're working independently. So those are the two routes that I would take.
Should you ever have to pay to submit your music into a music library? Is it one of those things where it's like some libraries you might have to, or is it a case-by-case basis?
So most libraries you submit to, you don't have to pay, but some of the libraries that are out there, you do have to pay. And it depends. You really got to do your research. It's not a bad idea to get your foot in the door if you do want to pay, but you totally do not have to pay. Like there's tons and tons of libraries out there that you can submit to that are, looking for composers who are hungry, talented, and create quality and consistent content.
So now I think everybody's probably gonna have this question too, is when it comes to submitting music, and like I said, we're gonna talk more about this later, should you focus on one specific genre when submitting your music in?
When you're first starting out, I recommend basically creating an album of your strong suit. So like, let's say that you're a drill producer, right? And you're making a lot of great drill beats. Focus on making quality drill beats, and do your research too on these music libraries if you're submitting as well. Like a lot of them have websites that you can go on and you can look at their catalog that they already have, listen to what they have, what kind of music they have. And then when you see, okay, let me see the hip hop music they have. Oh, they have trap. Oh, they have, old school hip hop, but they're really missing drill. I could be that person who's providing that quality drill. And then by the time these tracks are getting placed, I'm the leader of that sound. I'm creating, a lane for myself by focusing on that sound. So I would definitely recommend when you're first starting off, start creating albums of styles and genres that are very cohesive and just consistent as far as the sound, planting these little seeds in these libraries and stuff like that, and watching them sprout over time.
Getting into the payment now, most producers are probably used to the model of selling beats online where an artist pays a flat fee for the license, and then you also get royalties from that song being streamed. How does payment work for sync licensing?
It's kind of a similar approach. So you're either going to get an upfront fee. It could be anywhere from a few hundred to thousands of dollars, depending on the actual placement that you're getting or the approach or the opportunity that you're getting. And then the other way that's really big for composers and producers is the back end, the streaming royalties. I listened to a video that was on YouTube. It was from, I typed in like BMI or something and on YouTube, and it was a girl who was a representative for BMI. She worked for BMI, and in one of her videos, she said TV and film industry collect the most royalties out of any other type of musician on there. So that's the biggest stream of revenue that you're going to be getting, is that back end, especially depending on the network and stuff you're working on, the project. So yeah.
What is determining how much you get in the royalties? Do different networks pay better? I imagine probably the length of being used as well. What are the things that influence how much you're paid?
For sure, there's a few different factors. So the network definitely matters. Fox, NBC, CBS, those are like the main networks. You're gonna get paid a little bit more, actually, depending on the duration as well. How long your track's getting placed really does matter. The longer it is, the more you're gonna get paid. And then another lane that really helps you get paid more is the usage. So the usage is basically what type of track is being placed on this show. There's a few different ones here. I'll go through them really quickly. A background instrumental is just like your beat, your instrumental that's being used with just, no vocals in the background. Another lane is background vocal. That's going to pay a little bit more. It's just having like little like oohs and ahs in the background, or if you have like chants, sometimes people get away with adding chants or vocal chants and stuff like that, you get paid a little bit more. And then visual vocal will get you paid a lot. And then main title is like the theme song. The theme song is going to get you paid a lot as well. And then how long that show's been airing. So if it's like a show that gets renewed every season, that kind of plays a factor as well sometimes, depending on the show. So
it sounds great, you get paid off royalties, but how the hell do you get that money?
Right, so you need to sign up with the PRO, a performing rights organization. They're going to go out there, collect those royalties for you. See all these TV shows. All these TV shows are submitting, like I mentioned earlier, those cue sheets to these PROs, and they're collecting that information and they're monitoring and telling you how much you're getting paid from that.
Everybody's probably, I guess, BMI or ASCAP are probably the biggest two I have to imagine that everyone's familiar with. Which one do you use?
I use BMI, and the reason why is because it was free to sign up with as a writer. You can go with ASCAP. I think it's like $50 to sign up. And yeah, there's different ones as far as what countries or regions, so it's not limited to just the United States.
So the one big thing that a lot of producers are probably using nowadays is loop kits from places just like random YouTube creators or even like Cymatics. Would you say that you can get away with that, or is it better? It's just more of like a gray area you should stay away from.
That's a perfect way to put it. Right now, it's a gray area. A lot of producers I know do use loop kits. I've used loop kits with like Splice, and I've got them placed, and I have had no issues with them. But I know they're cracking down more right now on using those because a lot of these people are getting hit with copyright strikes having the same type of samples and loops. Better to just work with someone that you know makes exclusive loops for you and in a small community or a small bubble, or just make the loops and samples yourself. So just be careful and tread lightly with that, because you can run into issues and they can prevent you from getting your music placed because of those issues.
So the one thing that I saw is that some of these libraries ask for exclusives and some libraries are non-exclusives. Can you break down what that means?
Yeah, without getting too much into detail, exclusive essentially means they're going to own the exclusive rights to your track. They're going to be able to put it wherever they want. They're going to be able to add artists to it if they want to. They're going to be able to do essentially almost anything they want with that track, but your track is living within that library. It can be used in several different areas. Non-exclusive means that you're still owning the rights to your track. They might take a percentage of it, but you're still owning it. You can pitch it to whoever you want. You can still have it on your beat store. You can have it on Spotify, whatever you want. You can do that as well. But there's two different approaches, and some of them have their benefits and some of them have, the pros and cons basically within those two.
So if you get into a music library that is an exclusive library, those beats that you submit into that library for placements, you should not be putting those on your beat store, right?
Right. Yeah. If it's exclusive, you do not want them on your beat store. You want to make sure that they're separate, because that can tie into copyright infringement later. If an artist, here's their track that they bought or they lease and they see it on a TV show, they're going to think, hey, that's my placement. So yeah, that's why you want to keep that separate.
So now for the next part, I want to talk about formatting beats, because this is something I think producers are probably going to skip by and don't realize the importance of. So I have 3 questions directly to do with the formatting. And my first question to you is, just like selling beats, we want to keep our beats minimal and kind of simple. Does that same concept for sync licensing, you would say? Or does it depend on how your music's being used?
That's true. It does depend on how the music's being used. For the general underscore, which is where you're going to see the most success, because those are the type of tracks that place the longest, you want to keep it minimal. You want to keep a lot of room for dialogue. If you have a lot of competing sounds, if you're trying to flex with your beat just for somebody talking about their egg sandwich that they're eating, you're doing too much. Keep it very simple. That way there's a lot of room for dialogue.
So this kind of ties into when you first maybe start submitting into actual placements, and maybe you get like a brief of like, hey, we need this and this from you. Are they going to tell you specifically like how long to make it, or is it something that you kind of freeball, then they get back to you?
Yeah, sometimes they'll tell you how long. The sweet spot I say is about 1.5 to 2 minutes. And something that I didn't touch on earlier is to make sure that your intros are very short. You don't want your intros longer than 8 seconds max. That's a long intro. You want to make sure that it comes in very fast with a nice snare roll or something like that to just bring in the track.
And then the last thing we need to talk about, which I think I watched a few videos, and this seems like the most important part that everybody was harping about, is what the is a sting out or a stinger? Please explain.
Sure. So at the end of every track, you're going to need one of these to sting. It's basically a hit. Let's say you put a crash on top of a kick, on top of the root note of your main melody. It's the hit that ends the scene. So there's a scene that's going on. They're done with that scene. They want to move on to the next scene with a different emotion or a different vibe. I would say it's mandatory if you're submitting for TV placements, especially because they need that to transition into these different scenes.
So now I've been holding it back from you guys far enough. Let's get into the best practices for submitting your music. Getting into this. So I found this website, and what they do is on their little chatbot thing, I'll put a screenshot on the screen right now for everybody watching this, is they say submit music to this email. Now they don't tell us anything they want. So I have 3 questions to ask you about what your expertise would want to do in this situation. So the first question is, they are openly asking for submissions of their music. So should we submit them either MP3 files or WAV files in the email, or should we send a link to a streaming service where they can listen?
So before, I used to promote sending us MP3 attachment, because when I would work for the library, I would approve and deny a lot of the submissions. So I would want an MP3 or something like a link or something that was quick. But I would recommend now that if you are going to submit, you can submit an MP3 if they ask for it. Don't send WAV, because you think about Gmail, how hard it is sometimes to open up those WAV files. Yeah, for sure. Or send a link. And something I found out recently, I've known about this for a while, but I've done a little bit more research and saw this from a music supervisor herself praise on this is using Disco, DISCO, really big. And the reason why is because it's easier for these people who are editing shows or going through these shows to have everything they need as far as the metadata, like who's the writer of this, what type of track this is. So as long as it's easy to listen to when you're first submitting, that's the best practice. But if you want to get a little bit of extra brownie points, I would use Disco.
All right, then another thing I saw that I want to ask you here is when you're using these streaming links, and let's say you're using SoundCloud or even BeatStars, should you send them, how many tracks should you send in general?
If you're first getting approved, I would send 2 to 3. And I get this question a lot. I would make sure your tags are not on them. Some cases I've heard tags on them, and I mean, it's not a crazy big deal, but you just don't want to hear Metro Boomin wants some more randomly, and you're listening to a beat, or, you know, or buy this beat today, you know, so just make sure that you don't have your tag on it.
And then should you put them into one playlist so that way it's just one link, or should you send like 4 or 5 different links?
That's a good question. Yeah, one link for sure.
All right.
2 to 3, 3 to 5, that's your sweet spot.
Okay, sweet. For the last question for this one is, should you be sending beats already in the TV format and structure, or can you just send your beats in and they can just kind of judge the quality, then they'll go from there?
Yeah, if you're first getting approved for a music library, you can definitely send just your regular beats that you have up. Just make sure, like I said, that doesn't have a tag. And make sure your intro is not 30 seconds long. I think that's the biggest thing. They want to hear it really fast, see, okay, this guy's good, this guy has experience, or he knows what he's doing. Okay, let's get this guy involved in our situation. So I just would make sure that you're showcasing your nice beats, the best beats that you have, and keeping that intro very short.
So let's say that you find a company, you find a library online, and they only have just a contact email. It doesn't mention anything about submitting your music to this email. It's just a general contact email. Should you just submit your music into them right away, or should you just generally introduce yourself and ask if they're even taking submissions?
If they have a form on their website, I would just submit to there because they have somebody moderating that and just going through those submissions and trying to find that new talent, because they are looking for, you know, new musicians depending on what they need. But if you're going the cold approach, like you said, going through email, there's a certain way that you should address the way that you email. One, you should ask, hey, you know, are you guys accepting submissions right now? Who's the best person to talk to, basically? That would make it very, you know, personable and short and sweet, where it's not too long. You're not sending your whole, you know, biography to them. You're just giving them, you know, a nice
At age
email.
7, I first opened up FL Studio. And I never looked back.
No, for sure. Like, yeah, just keep it short, sweet, to the point, and formal and valuable.
Awesome stuff, man. Well, I think that's all we have for you today. I'm sure we could definitely do a part 2 if needed, if requested. I think a lot of people are gonna love this topic, but I really just want to thank you, man, for coming on here extremely fast within like 4 days of hitting you up.
For sure, man. I appreciate you having me, man. I really appreciate having the opportunity to kind of just perform this part of or explain this part of the, you know, industry for producers and stuff. So
no problem, man. And if you guys have any question, Nate has a whole bunch of content on YouTube, and he even does have a paid course as well. Can you explain what's in that paid course, just so people know too?
Telling you how to submit beats, where to submit beats. I'm giving you a directory of like 30 plus different libraries, including the ones that I personally have worked for, like Signature Tracks, that has contact information and stuff like that. That's exclusive for people who want to submit. I like to be very hands-on and help you along the way, because my goal is to get you that placement. Like, my goal is to see you succeed. So that's what the course is about. All
right, man. Well, that's awesome stuff. That's where we're gonna wrap up the video. I'll see you guys in next week's. Peace out.
All right, later.
We got that mother.